It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
Well, hello there. This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to The Phil Ferguson Show. Sorry for the delay. I've been a little occupied, but that's good. You know, staying busy. Plenty of work to do, and I'd like to get out more, but, you know, COVID kind of thing. It's still not election time or at the end of election time, so if you haven't voted, I did my super mega early request a ballot in advance, got my ballot in advance, and boy, I got it at home. Boy, that was nice, because there were some things on there that I didn't know that these people were running, so I could pause in the middle of my vote and do some research and look the 2 or 3 or 8 candidates up and try to learn their positions and go to their websites and ignore commercials, but, you know, let people actually try to promote themselves and tell me what they're all in favor of. And of course, if they, said things I didn't like, I didn't vote for them. If they said things I like, I vote for them. So I thought that actually led to me being a much more informed voter. So I really liked that. I went ahead and mailed it because it's over a month. So I know the postal system is not top tier like it was 6 months ago or 12 months ago, but it only has to go across town. So I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that it will get there, and it'll get there, and they'll count it early, I hope. Those states that don't count absentee or mail-in ballots until after the election, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. A lot of polls have now showed that Biden is up 10, 12, even 15 points nationally. So let's hope that that is realized with enough ballots on the day, on the official voting day, and early voting and mail-in and absentee and all these forms. Many states can count those things in advance and have them all pretty much ready by the end of the day on election day. And hopefully, that night, a lot of districts and a lot of states have enough votes in. I mean, if you have 5% of your votes outstanding, but one candidate is 10% in the lead by vote, it doesn't really matter what's in that last 5%. I mean, of course, they'll get counted, but that's okay. But if we're all within 1% in the regular suspects, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Florida, if they're all within plus or minus 1% and there's 10% of votes outstanding, it could take time and it could be a delay. And then, of course, there are people who want to make it ugly. So I'm optimistic at this point, fingers crossed, that it all goes very smoothly and the margin is big enough that we don't have those things. So that's my dream. That's my fantasy of what can happen. Other things in the news, I guess everything's doing well. I have talked about cars a little bit recently, and I think I mentioned I put down a deposit on a car. It's the RAV4 Prime, which some people might think kind of goes opposite my normal modus operandi because it is a bigger, heavier, lower mileage gasoline car, at least in part, but it does get up to 42 miles in local range. So that'll be for my wife, because when the topic came up of getting her in an all-electric car, that didn't go well. So, you know what? She gets what she wants. But the nice thing is that instead of the Prius Prime of 25-mile range, this is 42-mile range on electricity. And so all the errands, anything that she does locally, it's still going to be all electric. If she needs to go somewhere farther and I don't need to go, she's still perfectly capable and happy to drive the electric Chevy Bolt, 200, 250 miles without a charge. Absolutely fantastic. And then we might kick back over to the RAV if we're going somewhere, especially if we're going 400, 500, 600 miles, which once or twice a year. So we're going to be pretty close to 90, 95% electric, but still having the convenience of going a huge distance when we want to. But we've got this idea, and hopefully we actually do it, of camping in the thing. And because it has this electrical system, once you pull into the campsite and plug in, you can run the heat or the air conditioner. You can run, my wife uses a CPAP machine. We can charge our phones. We can play music and all these things while the car is charging up. So even if you do drive somewhere far away, if you're camping or staying at a hotel and it plugs into the hotel, then for days, if you can go see sites in that area all on electric again. So I think it's a really good mix on top of the 100% electric car. And the Bolt is fantastic. Everywhere in Chicago. I've driven to Champaign and back. That's cutting it close because there's no high-speed charger in Champaign yet. At least not for non-Teslas. For Tesla, you got me beat right there. That's one spot. There's a fast charger in Champaign for Tesla, not for non-Teslas. But across the nation, I think there's now something like 9,600 high-speed Tesla outlets and almost 7,000 non-Tesla high-speed outlets. So not quite as many, but it's getting close. And there are way more Teslas on the road. So sometimes during holidays, people have had to wait at Tesla charging stations. But it's getting better all the time. So if you've considered an electric car, go get one. Why not? Think about it. The other reminder is that I'm still doing a match to raise money for the Secular Student Alliance. Everything that people contribute between October, November, and December, if it is given as a monthly commitment, because the Secular Student Alliance, like a lot of charities, have a hard time balancing their cash flow when they do drives and people give $100 or $500 or $1,000, which is always welcome. But if you give $1,000 and then nothing for a long period of time, maybe a whole year or a year and a half or 6 months, whatever, it's harder to do the budget and the planning. So it's much better for an organization like that for the contributions, for the donations to come in monthly. So that's the purpose of the way I set up the match, and hopefully I can get you an updated number soon. But any money contributed to the monthly program, and if you are a new donor, awesome. And even if you already give, if you increase your donation, so let's say you give $10 a month before, and now you go to $20 a month, that additional $10 still counts towards this promotion. And so everything contributed since the beginning of the promotion through the end of the year, we're going to add that all up. And if those monthly contributions so far equal $10,000, I will match. Polaris Financial Planning will match $10,000. So it's a way for us collectively as a group to raise an extra $20,000 for the Secular Student Alliance, which helps cover a lot of its overhead costs, its printed material costs, its helping students costs, and if somehow, some way they can have an in-person conference, otherwise an online conference to help teach leadership skills to secular students. A lot of times religious organizations do this, and it's a good thing to teach. And we don't want religion to have the exclusive advantage in learning how to be a leader and learning how to help other people along the way. So I think it's really, really important. So if you've not done that, just a quick reminder here, you can go to secularstudents.org/Phil, and there's information on that page about how to make a monthly contribution, and you can sign up for something there, and you can get your money added to this pool of up to $10,000. And if it's more than $10,000, that's great. My limit's 10, but also if it's only $5,000, I'm only matching $5,000. So it's up to you guys to take my money. So it's for a good cause. It's for the kids, right? It's for the kids. In today's show, gosh, I should have done that earlier, but hey, what the heck? In today's show, I have a brief segment on dollar cost averaging and the concept behind that and how it works and how it doesn't work. And in this case, specifically applied to maybe someone who made the horrible mistake of somewhere in the last year or worse, farther back, taking a bunch of money out of the market because they got scared. And when you watch the market go up and up and up and up and up again, well, how in the fuck do you get back in? Because you were scared when it was lower, and now maybe you're more scared when it's higher, but you're also missing all the upside. So I'm going to talk about that in the segment, so I don't want to do too much on that. And then I have 2 interviews, kind of a unique interviews for this style of show, or even specifically for my show. These are 2 people that volunteered to be on the show that their family, they grew up in an atheist environment, I guess. The parents didn't go to church. They didn't go to church. But at some point later in their life, they joined a religion. They joined Christianity, both in this case. They joined a religion and then had to struggle to get back out. And I think you'll find both of the stories interesting. And I want you to pay attention to and listen to some things that they have in common. And then if I remember to, at the end of this show, I'll have some wrap-up thoughts of my own. And, you're going to enjoy it. So with no further ado, let's get on with the show. This investing skeptically topic is on dollar cost averaging. I've received quite a few emails in the last few months from people that got a little spooked earlier in 2020. And in some cases, they mistakenly took money out near market bottoms, or even if they got lucky and were sitting in cash when the market dropped in February and March, they also missed all of the upside since March. I mean, it went up a lot real fast, and then, it's bounced around, but it's up a lot from the low point in March, clearly. And so people will send me emails, what do I do now? I have all this cash. What do I do now? And I've discussed this in previous segments, but I wanted to specifically address this concept now, in part because so many people took the time to write me kind emails about this. So for me, if it was me, okay, and this is not advice for you, this is not advice for anybody, but the stock market is a long run thing. So if you are scared of it, that's cool. A lot of that fear can go away if you learn more about how it works. And that goes to my book list, which we've talked about many times, but really quick, the 4 books, I do recommend them in order. 1, The Richest Man in Babylon. 2, A Random Walk. 3, Winning the Loser's Game. And 4, Common Sense on Mutual Funds. The first 3 you can get in any format. Kindle, Audible, paperback, I don't care. The 4th one, I do insist in having a physical copy. Treat it like a textbook. This gives you a greater knowledge and comfort and can take away some of the fear. But if you are now sitting in a bunch of cash and you don't know what to do with it, and assuming you are more than 15 years out from retirement, you can start adding money in slowly. Now, theoretically, most years the market goes up. You pick any random point on a continuum, a timeline of stock market performance, no matter when you pick blindly, there's a really good chance, 80, 85, 90% chance that a year later you're going to have more money than what you put in. However, there is that 5, 10, 15% chance that you're going to have a lot less than what you put in. So one way to kind of even out your odds a little bit is putting in money in discrete amounts, a portion of your portfolio at one time and another portion at another time. And this is often referred to as a dollar cost averaging. For many people, you are dollar cost averaging every year without even thinking about it. If you are putting money into your IRAs, into your 401k or 403b, 457, whatever method you're using, if you're adding money every year, you really are dollar cost averaging, but it just seems like your annual contribution, so you don't think about it this way. The dollar cost averaging on the whole, on average, reduces your long-term performance. So think about all the money you've put into your 401k over the last 10 years. If you had all that money, if you could have put all that money in the market 10 years ago as one big lump sum, today you would be way better off than adding it a little bit each year for the last 10 years. And maybe I'll work up the math on that, but you get the idea, especially when the market's up. You do have those cases where if you started at the end of 2007, 1 year later, at the end of 2008, you would have 37% less money if you put all in on the exact wrong time. And that's often the example people hear, because someone who wants to sell you something that's more safe will pick a very bad time to buy. But if you look at the average, all the different times you could have bought, it works out pretty well. So as a rule, dollar cost averaging gets you lower performance. However, if you're sitting in a pile of cash and you want to start investing, knowing that maybe you're going to get a little bit less theoretical long-term return, you can dramatically reduce the short-term volatility so that you feel more comfortable about it. So as an example, let's just say you're sitting on $100,000 and you really should be invested. But when do you get in? Now it becomes this ginormous psychological battle. And that's one of the things that my plan, my strategy, the Polaris plan, what it tries to eliminate a lot of that emotional battle. Because when you're having an emotional battle, you're not making rational decisions. And there are certain things that we know that tend to have better results. One of them is not sitting going, oh my God, should I buy now? Should I buy tomorrow? Should I sell now? Should I buy now? You're going to fuck it up. And it's not necessarily every time. But you've got to be right way more often than you're wrong. And you've got to be right way more often than being wrong, plus the trading and tax consequences that are involved in trying to jump in and out of the market. So let's say you have that 100,000 and you don't know what to do. I'm not in love of throwing $100,000 in the market at this point. If that's all that you have, just jumping in with both feet. We've made so much money and the valuations do seem a little rich. I'm not kidding myself. That's why the cushion is now bigger than what it was 3 or 4 years ago for the average client, because we've made so much money. So you could put in, let's say, 10% of your money. That's cool. And you wait a month. You put in 10%. You wait a month. And you put in 10%. So you're adding $10,000 every month for 10 months. If that's too fast for you, go every other month. Okay, it'll take 20 months, almost 2 years. If you go every 3 months, it'll be 30 months. That's 2.5 years. Plus, of course, assuming that you're working and able to save money going forward, you can also be adding that money. So you can stretch it out. I'm going to stick with the 10% per month for the next point of my discussion, is that you put 10% in, you put 10% in, you put 10% in, your 30% of your money is in, and now the market falls 50%. Will it fall more or go up? I don't know. You don't know. No one really knows, but you can have yourself prepared that at a certain drop, you're going to put in either 20% per month or the remainder, whatever, but write those rules down in advance. Email yourself your rules. It doesn't really matter what the rules are. It's just that you fucking follow them. Because at the time that you wrote them, they were relatively rational and defined based on some mathematical metrics. So you're just following the instructions you gave yourself. And if you thought they were good enough to write down, if you thought they were good enough to send them to you, it's probably better than the knee-jerk reaction that you're having at the time there's a change in the market. So you could say, I'm going to add 10% per month no matter what. Okay, so on the 5th, the 10th, the 20th, the 1st, whatever day of the month you want to do it, you might even set it up at your bank or your investment company that's automatic. So you don't have to go back to it. It just happens. You're not thinking about it again. You want it to be a rational, systematic process. You could create a second rule that says, okay, if the market falls 15% that month, I'm going to put 20% in. If it falls 30%, I'm going to put 30% in. Or you could say if it falls 30%, I mean, the amount of times that it falls 30% or more is like once a decade. Wow, that's a huge buying opportunity. based on historical activity, I don't know about the future. So you can create rules. Don't get too crazy. Just make a couple of rules. Now, if the market keeps going up, you are going to lose on performance because you're dragging out and delaying your contributions. However, the beauty about dollar cost averaging is that you tend to get a reasonably good result with reasonably good reduction in volatility. So it's a trade-off. And I think maybe most importantly is that you can convince yourself, and you might even be able to say out loud things that are relatively true. As an example, you put in money for 2 or 3 months and the market falls 30% and you decide to jump in. You could tell yourself, or anyone that listens to you, I kind of had a feeling the market was going to go down. That's why I was dragging out putting the money in, and now I jumped in at this big drop. Great. Psychologically, you have a story to protect your fragile mental state and claim that you were better than you actually were. All you did was follow your rules. If the market is up every month or down only a point or two and it doesn't trigger any other rules, fine. In this scenario, 10 months later, you're in, and you can look back and say, those first couple of months where I put in 10% and another 10% and another 10%, the market's up since then. And you can actually see that you have more money than $100,000. And you could say, rightfully, to yourself or to someone else, I kind of had a feeling that the market was going to go up. That's why I started investing a year or two ago. So hopefully you see where I'm going with this. And it allows you to put in money cautiously over time. You are limiting a little bit the theoretical long-term returns that you're going to make, but you will be limiting quite a bit the volatility that you could experience if you put all of the money in. So it depends on you. And the people that wrote me emails where they've just done a market in or a market out activity, those are the people I'm most concerned about. I do not want to try to talk you in to jumping back in, because maybe that's the right answer, and maybe that's the right answer a good chunk of the time in the long run. But if something bad happens in the short run, you're going to be mad at yourself, and you're going to be mad at me, and I don't need that shit. So ponder what you want to do. Think about dollar cost averaging in. If you want to learn more about dollar cost averaging, you can do a little Google search. I particularly like information provided at Investopedia. So you can go read their articles on it. And it allows you a way to get back in slowly over time. You're protected psychologically. If the market goes up, you can claim you were in. If the market goes down, you can claim that you waited a while to buy in. Of course, if you do all of this over 10 or 12 or 18 months and then the market goes down, well, it just depends on how much it went down. If it went up 20% over 2 years and then it falls 30%, you could still be short. But remember, you're not really short 30%. You're only short 30% from the peak. And this is something that I see on a regular basis, and I know I fall victim to it because I'm mostly human, I guess. We tend to look at every quarterly statement. And I'm perfectly okay if you only look at your account once a year, by the way. But if you look at every quarterly statement, if that quarter is up, whether it's 1% or 20%, in my mind, that is now the amount of money that I have. And I celebrate it, and I'm very excited. If any statement comes out, whether it's the next month, next quarter, or next year, and the total value of the portfolio is down, to me it feels like I lost all of that money. And I very easily and quickly forget what I made. But now I only see what I lost. You have to break yourself of that. And you need to look at a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. And you can have a situation like in 2008 where it went down 37% that maybe you need to look back 3 or 4 years before you are even. But if you're in it for the long run, still that doesn't matter. It's the long run. So focus on the long run. Learn more about how markets work. Read the books that I recommend. 3 of them are easy, fun. You can just sit down and read them. The first one, The Richest Man in Babylon, I think is still free on YouTube somewhere. Someone read it aloud because it's an old enough book that it's out of copyright. read those books, learn more about how it works, get in gradually using dollar cost average if you have a bunch of cash. Also, keep in mind, and I do get this kind of side question sometimes, if someone has $100,000 in an account invested and they want to move it to another account, they want to know, well, should I go to cash and dollar cost back in? No, you should not. If you're 100% stocks and you're just moving to another account, another custodian, a different way of investing, you're already in the market, just move the money. And it all ties back to this idea that the stock market is not something that you try. It is something that you do. You either invest in the stock market or you do not. There is no try. Please do not try the stock market. It has to be a long-term strategy. And again, if you're 15 years or much less years closer to retirement, you could, of course, fund the cushion. So let's say you're 5 or 6 years out. You know how much money you want in a cushion. That's bonds. You can put 100% of that money in today because there's not a big volatility risk in the instruments that I use in the cushion. And then add 10% per month or two in the riskier part. So just some thoughts on how to get back into the market if you accidentally or intentionally got out. Maybe you even timed it right this time, but you might not be so lucky next time. So you've heard it a million times, buy and hold, buy and hold. And hopefully that helped at least somebody who's listening. And now we'll take a break and go back into the rest of the fun stuff of the show.
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
I think there'd be more atheists and less faithful if you weren't allowed to teach anything, you weren't allowed to mention any gods or any beliefs or atheism, right, until they were 20. I think we'd see a different pattern. The human brain, when it's young, is a sponge. It has to be. It has to take in all the information. It has to trust its parents, its elders, to survive. Without question, don't touch the fire. Why not? Don't go near the wolf. Don't touch that spider with a red bit. Don't touch that. Why not? Just don't. There is a God. What? There is a God. And if you're bad, you go to hell. Okay? And if that's constantly confirmed, like all the other things, wolves eat you, black widows kill you, fires burn you, if it's given that same level of credence and truth, you're never going to get over it. It's going to be a lot harder to undo that. I think the myths came up, maybe, often as a stopgap to knowledge until we find out more. The earth is flat, and no, we've proved now, okay, the earth's not flat, we were wrong, okay? But that's not personal. You don't take that personally. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect your afterlife, And so they often want to hold on to that, right? But only because of the way they've been conditioned. We know it's fun to tell children there's a Santa Claus, and there's fairies at the bottom of the garden, and all these cute things. It's cute till they're 7 or 8. If they're 34, it's a bit embarrassing socially. This is my son. What's he doing? He's looking for fairies. Is he? Okay, we better leave. If you're born in India, you're probably a Hindu. If you're born in America, you're probably a Christian. If you're born in Pakistan, you're probably a Muslim. That's a coincidence, isn't it? That you're always born into the right God. Always. Isn't that lucky? I was born under the right God. All those others are going to hell. But I was born into the right religion. I'm going to heaven. It's strange that we hold on to these sort of medieval beliefs. Where did the universe come from? God made it. Which doesn't solve the problem for me. Because we straight away say, well, who made God? And if they say, well, he's always been around, well, let's just say the universe has then. Let's just cut out the middleman. It saves time.
The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Your investments should be based on your situation, and you should consult with your financial advisor before taking any action. The show may contain ads. These ads are placed into the show by the hosting company after I finish recording and editing. I have little control over the content of the ads, and you should not assume that I support their products or claims. If you choose to support the show via the new Patreon page, that support does not create an advisor-client relationship. All right, everybody. Once again, I have another interview with someone who was an atheist, became not an atheist, and then became an atheist. And, of course, they are at work taking time off, or a little bit of time using their break to talk to me and to all the listeners. That's why there's the beeping going on. So, listeners, I wanted everyone to understand the sacrifice that you're making. And, of course, today we're going to talk to Brent Guggisberg. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, Phil. How are you doing, buddy?
I am doing good. And matter of fact, it's funny. Today was the first day I woke up and I took a shower with the desire of the shower warming me up. Because normally I wake up and it's hot, or I mowed the lawn and I'm hot, or I did something else and I'm hot and I want to take a shower. Today I woke up and I'm like, oh, summer's over.
Yep. Oh, it hit us. It killed us.
So you're at work, so I'm going to be respectful of your time, but you had contacted me when I put the call out, and you said that you were born and raised an atheist. Is that right?
No. So, well, this is it was never spoken of. I mean, until I was 10 years old. I'm from San Diego. My dad was in the Navy. I'm pretty sure my dad was an atheist, but we never talked about it. We never went to church. So then my mom gets remarried. When I was 10, we moved out to Golden, Colorado. Well, my new stepfather is a Catholic. So I start going to Sunday school and church, and I don't know. I just never got it. Like, I went because I got to meet people, and I'm 10, so it's not like I have any wisdom to go, oh, this is bullshit. But it never made any sense to me. And, like, I was happy to go because I get to meet my friends, but that was about it. I never felt like the warming sensation of the Lord touching me, or anything like that. I went to church, and it was kind of funny because that's what I was interested in when you put the call out. And I think maybe I have a little bit of a different story. Like I said, it's like, and I just grew up and I kept quiet, and then I moved back to California, and my dad turned me on to science fiction. He was a huge science fiction buff, and I read Robert Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land, and one of the main characters says, oh yeah, and they're talking about biblical stuff, and he says, oh, in the Bible, what is it, 2 Kings chapter 2, 23, God kills 40 kids for calling a priest baldy, and I'm like, no way. So had a Bible, went and looked at it, went, holy shit, this whole thing's bullshit. Like, that's all it took. Like, this is all bullshit. That's just a story to scare people. Like, don't make fun of the priests because they'll curse you, and that's all it was there for.
Yeah.
So like, I just knew that one was totally wrong. I still had maybe a sense, and it's kind of like what we were talking about before the interview started, really. But the intelligence thing, when you hear that, like, scientists find out that your soul, you get lighter, so your soul is. I thought it was a scientific thing, but that's just somebody using the word scientific. Doesn't mean it's actually fucking scientific.
Now, are you referring to upon death? People think you're a little bit lighter, so the soul has mass, so therefore it's real.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, you just find out that it's bullshit. It's just like the Bermuda Triangle and all the fairy tales.
Yeah.
So that stuff, when I was younger, I wanted to believe. I did actually want those things to be real, and it would be kind of cool that if. I never thought of a God, but I thought maybe when I was younger, oh, it'd be cool if there actually is another side. Just your soul is just as lost as it is here, but you could fucking travel around the universe. But the more I got older, it seems like all the evidence points to is this is the only fucking life we got. So let's just treat each other as good as possible. Don't step on each other's toes on purpose. You can't help but doing it on accident, and just try to fucking bring humanity to a higher plateau of understanding. My big thing, and what I really like about Matt Dillahunty, is it's not about believing something, it's about understanding. I want to understand the world as it actually is, not as it fucking could be, or I'd like it to be, or how pretty it sounds. I just want to understand it, how it actually is. And what sucks is my mind. I wish I had Lawrence Krauss's mind because I could understand things a lot better. But at least I can see him as an example for like physics. I can garner that he knows a shitload more about physics, and then I can basically take what he says. Okay, this is what seems like to be the best category for the way the universe is right now. You know. So.
I understand now. You also do art. Is that correct?
Yeah. I'm an artist. I've got one of my sculptures is in the Elenoff Gallery up in Telluride, Colorado. So I've got prints. I don't want to plug on your show.
No, that's what you're here for, dude. Plug it.
Oh, well, okay. So I got a website called Beautiful Lotto, and the concept is I'm an unknown artist, and it's hard. It's hard to fucking get known while you're still alive, and I'd really like to be just an artist before I die.
Right.
So if you go to beautifullotto.com, it's my best-selling print. I'm going to sell 10,000 prints, and then after I sell all 10,000 prints, I will randomly pick one of those people to give the original to. So you've just made the original piece of artwork worth over $1 million. So, and then I hope to get other unknown artists. There's not up yet, but the site is up, but all the pages aren't. So I'm going to have a place where other artists can submit their stuff. And also, my only qualification is you're good, and I like it. I do have to like it. Doesn't mean it's bad art. I have to like it, and you're unknown. You know, you're relatively unknown. So
I like it.
And yeah.
So trying to make it. We need more art.
Yes.
So that's good, and people can go check out. What's the website one more time?
beautifullotto.com.
Excellent, and so people can eventually be put into a drawing to win the very thing that they're buying a copy of.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, years ago I talked to somebody that it's like 8 years ago, and they were talking about licensing some of my artwork. So I go in, and they've got all this Marilyn Monroe stuff, and they said that they had the licensing for Marilyn Monroe, and Marilyn Monroe, I don't know when she died. It was in the 60s, right? But so it's like 50, 60 years since she's been dead. Marilyn Monroe's licensing still makes $8 million a year.
Wow.
That's crazy when you think about it. When he said that, I'm like, holy shit, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I would probably argue that licensing lasts too long, but hey, that's for a whole nother topic.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You know, got to provide money from people that are doing new stuff today, so that's very cool. So you do say that you're an atheist today, right? Is that fair to say?
So, well, here's another good part of the story. So, like, after I tried figuring shit out, I thought scientifically, I used to think, with my ignorance, I thought that atheist was a definite, I know there is no God. So I backed off from that, calling myself an agnostic, but I was 99.999% sure there was no God. I just don't see any evidence, but I figured the only thing I could do was say, I'm agnostic. So I started hanging out with friends, and I was 30, and they're 20, and they're in the Navy, and they were just really cool guys, but they were diehard atheists. And when I told them I was an agnostic, they're like, "Oh, you're sitting on the fence, fucking." And I'm like, "No, I'm not on the fence. It's not like I'm hoping or wondering. I'm pretty much on your side." So I tried to find out the ancient Greek word for one who does not care. I don't give a shit if there's a God. And it turns out this lady that said she was an expert in that language said aphorian, but I found out later on that that's a made-up word. I don't care. So I'm like Christopher Hitchens calls himself an anti-theist, and I get that, and I totally support him. He was brilliant in his lifetime. But I'm an aphorian. I don't give a shit. I don't care if there's a God. If there is, it would let itself be known. I would be able to fucking figure it out because it would know exactly how to let me figure it out. Doesn't seem it's there, so I don't give a shit.
And
I just don't give a shit.
I think I have a word for you, atheist.
Atheist. Oh, that makes more sense. Atheist.
Yeah.
Yes.
Atheist is someone who just doesn't care if there is or is not a God. But you could also not care and still not be convinced, so you could be an atheist.
That would be what I am. I'm definitely not convinced. I'm like I said, I'm more than 99% sure that there isn't any. And what I enjoy about you and RN and Matt and all of you folk on YouTube, and I'm trying to join the club sort of thing, but that you have other skill sets and you're trying to fight the fight for the good reason. You're not saying, because those friends of mine back then, they're like, oh, everyone who believes is stupid and they're just worthless and they're suckers. I'm like, no, that's not the case. Some of them are just, that's been their life. And calling them those names doesn't help them get out of their fucking situation.
No, it doesn't. And a lot of smart people can be wrong. People who listen to my podcast on a regular basis and think that I'm smart will also recognize that I'm wrong. Had a real big one, a month or two ago.
Tell me.
Oh,
hit me with your wrongness.
It was all about international funds. I had said very declaratively that Vanguard International funds were hedged against currency fluctuations, and then I looked it up again just to double check myself and found out not only are they not, but it's a good idea that they're not. So I was wrong twice on that one.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
that's. But see, you called yourself on, and did you go back and?
Oh yeah. I had a big mea culpa where I'm just like, years ago, I had some people contact me and say, "Stop correcting yourself. You're hurting your credibility." And I was like, well, if me correcting myself bothers you, stop listening to my fucking show, because I don't care.
Yeah, no shit.
Because
that's the fucking worst advice. What they basically just told you, why don't you be more like Trump? It's like, what the fuck?
Well, yeah, that's the kind of the gist of it. It reminded me, your comment reminded me of a story. I was at a atheist conference of some kind, and I'm sitting in the bar, and someone's asking me about investing, and I'm giving them some suggestions, and a famous person, I will not name drop because that would be a dickish move, but a famous person walks up to me and says, Phil, never give free advice. And I turned to them and I said, like you just did.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What did you gulp?
Yeah, it was
the door?
It was a fun moment.
Where's the door? I gotta go. I gotta go. Where's the door?
Yeah, that's my Costanza moment. I'm out of here.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
All right, well, go ahead.
And I'm sure, just one more thing. I'm sure that what you feel is what I feel. It does happen to me a lot too. I like being corrected. I like being like, hey man, you were wrong about this, and I changed my fucking opinion. That's what life is about.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm conflicted, because there is a part of me that agrees with you 100%. I like it, but then there's a part of me where I don't really like it. But it's one of those things that I think I've gotten better over the years. Yeah. And one of the things I've talked about before is people that learn a second or a third language. One of the things that I like about them most, to get successful in a second language, you have to acknowledge that you're wrong most of the time. Because I mean, I've been doing Italian for 8 years. I'm wrong every single time when I'm saying something, and I get corrected, and you have to accept that as a method of improvement and just keep forging ahead. And so I do have a appreciation for people that can accept mistakes, people that are learning languages, because it almost requires that you accept mistakes. But excellent. Well, go ahead.
There's different ways to be corrected as well. I mean,
you can be a douche.
Someone belittling you, and even if they're wrong and or if they're right and they're belittling you, it's like, dude, fucking really? I was wrong about something. You don't gotta like hang it over my head. I wouldn't do that to you. That's just bullshit.
I like it. Well, Brent, thank you for sharing your story and coming on the show. I appreciate it very much.
Hey, thanks for having me, bud. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Now it's time for a special guest. Today we're going to hear from William Brinkman, and he is going to share with us his deconversion story and how it went and how he's doing now, which I happen to know is fantastic. William, how are you today?
Oh, pretty good. Thanks for asking. Keeping busy.
Excellent. Now, I don't want to give up too much information, but William happens to be in and around or nearby the Chicago area, and before COVID, in the past, we have met at meetings and little local conferences and stuff like that. But I don't know. How long has it been? Like 4 years, 5 years since I've seen you in person?
4 years? 4 years or so. I know I've moved around a lot. I've moved out of the Chicago area. Then back to the Chicago area in 2016 and moved again to a nice place. So, yeah, it's been a while. It's kind of reconnecting with the people out here. Yeah, it's been great.
Well, I happened to put out a call for people that wanted to talk about their deconversion stories, and my listeners may not be surprised. I've gotten a lot of requests, so thank you, everybody who's responded. And I don't know that I can get to everybody that's called or emailed, but William, we're going to talk about you. So
Sure.
You grew up in some kind of religious household, I'm taking it?
Actually, I really didn't. It's kind of give you a different spin on the
Yeah. So
the conversion and deconversion story, because my family was very non-religious.
okay.
My mother's an atheist. My stepfather is also an atheist. So initially, when I was growing up, I didn't believe in God. I was actually quite militant about it. But I was also like in grade school, so really wasn't well versed in the actual arguments against theism. But basically, my conversion started when there was a kids' Bible group in our neighborhood. And my mother said, "You can go to it. They'll talk about religion, but it'll be okay." And then I went to it, and then it just made me feel uncomfortable because I really didn't get a full religious understanding of religion from my parents.
Yeah. So the parents never really talked about religion. It was just kind of assumed as the default that you were not religious. They didn't teach you pro or con or anything, and just kind of left you to the wolves, as we might say.
Pretty much. I mean, they talked a little bit, some basic background, but they left me to the wolves.
Yeah.
So, and then the wolves struck. After I left the Bible study, apparently the mother in charge of it said to pray for me. And then my friends in that group were saying, like, you gotta believe in God. God, it's like you're going to go to hell.
Yeah, nice guy. I want to worship him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I was a kid, so I don't give him some leeway. But what got me was two of the kids played a game on me, and let's see, one of them pretended to be possessed by the devil.
Oh.
And did and he was like throwing up rocks and saying evil things, and then my other friend pretended to perform an exorcism, and pretty much, unfortunately for grade school me, it was kind of believable, so I decided there must be a God, and went over and had the big conversion, the awakening, the come to Jesus moment.
And so their strategy was to lie to you.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing when a parent or a friend is just, I don't want to say deluded, but misinformed, happens to believe something that I think, I'm pretty certain is not true. It's a whole nother thing to intentionally lie to you. So that's kind of how you got in then, huh?
Yes.
Nice.
Got in.
Nice people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Then I later left that group for other reasons. But actually, I was a believer because of what I had seen. And I was in Missouri at the time, so it's like I'm part of the Bible Belt. So
right.
I believe it was reinforced in everyday life. But I don't know, I began to have some doubts, like a few months later, because I'd seen the movie Oh God and loved it. And then I asked the mom, who was in charge of the group, what she thought of it. And then she said,
talking about the George Burns movie?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Yeah,
Good family entertainment. George Burns never lets down.
Uh-huh.
And you were talking to one of the parents, you said?
Yeah. And then she said, well, the only parent who was running it. And then she said, no, it must be a bad thing because they're making fun of God. But then I was thinking, wait a minute, this movie isn't bad. But so I kind of left the group, but the nondescript belief in God was still there, which followed me. Well, I kept it pretty much through up until college, but there was another moment in high school where I kind of felt uncomfortable. It was someone I knew in a class waved me down and said, "Hey, come with me." Just like before classes were going to start. And I went in, figuring out what's going on. And then there was like a group of people. And then they all sat down. And then one of them started, I guess, read a Bible quote. I don't remember the exact one. And then so the question was, should Christians associate with non-Christians? And then this like one woman was saying, young woman was saying, "Oh, I don't know, I'm not sure." And then this other person was saying, "You shouldn't, but I have to try to convert them," and blah blah blah. And I just like, okay, this is bad, and walked out. And then, I mean, I'm still religious, and I was at the same time I was also part of DMLA, kind of a Masonic-sponsored youth organization, so you had to believe in God to be in that. Yeah. So that's kind of a reason to keep my belief. But I think deconversion started freshman year. I was at the University of Iowa, and they had a program called the Unified Program, where a group of about 80 to 100 freshmen would take all their required courses together. It was all part of a unified sequence of classes. Unfortunately, the program doesn't exist anymore, but it was great. It was like you're at a Big Ten university, but you had a small group of people to connect, like a small
nice.
company. Yeah. And then the first time was, the first semester, our humanities class went over the Bible. He was like, started reading this, and this was really like the first time I seriously read the Bible and listened to like arguments for creation. It was like the first time I had an actual critical understanding of the beliefs and what Christianity actually involved. And let's see. Basically, I just remember trying to reconcile the violence and inhumanity that God was inflicting upon the Jewish people. And
yeah, God doesn't seem like a nice guy in the Bible, does he?
Nice guy. And then it's like, I was a very nice person at the time, and hopefully still am. But basically, I was just trying to reconcile it. And then I remember at one point I snapped, and it's like, there is no God. I cannot reconcile the real world with what I'm reading in the Bible. And that was my big epiphany.
That was freshman year.
Freshman year, yes.
And you've never looked back?
No, never looked back. Well, maybe for one moment when I thought I saw a tornado, but it was actually a cold air funnel. But after that, never looked back.
Fair enough. Now, of course, your parents weren't bothered by this and probably didn't even care.
Well, I never really told them about the religious part, but
okay.
My family's kind of complicated, but I was just worried how they would react because they were very non-religious. But once I deconverted, it was kind of like, I no longer have to keep a secret from them. We're on the same page again.
Yeah, very nice. And did you have any problem with any other friends or any fallout from not being religious anymore?
Not in freshman year. I guess I went through the phase of like some atheists go through where you like suddenly realize you don't believe in God and you're like really obnoxious about it. I was guilty of that. But at the same time, I really didn't have the groundings of the reasonings for not believing. It was just the gut feeling.
Yeah.
And so really, after college, when I had free time, when I was like job hunting, I also started looking at the Skeptical Inquirer and the American Atheist magazine at the time. And that was like kind of the beginnings, but really once I moved to Illinois, I was like, and then I hooked up with the Unitarian Church, and there was like a atheist subset there. I hooked up with them and their various meetups at the time. And then blogging and the web really exploded. That was about the time I really gained more of an understanding of why not to believe, and more of the arguments against theism, and the arguments that affirm not only disbelief in God, but in humanism and how to move forward from there.
Are you doing the blog anymore, or is that?
Oh yeah, Bolingbroke Babbler is still around. It's now on Free Thought Blogs.
Okay, nice. And give us the name again because I was talking.
Oh, freethoughtblogs.com /babbler.
/babbler.
Yes.
Excellent. That's still satirical stories?
Oh, yes. Still satirical, but since I moved over to Free Thought Blogs, I've kind of experimented with nonfiction, speaking in my own voice. And,
right.
And it's like, I know for years I wasn't sure if I could do that, but they've given me the space to do that, and it feels great. It's like I feel like I've grown since I moved there.
Very nice. And what else is in your future coming up? Just trying to survive through COVID?
I'm trying to survive through COVID, and Free Thought Blogs is having a promotional event the weekend of September 25th. That's coming up pretty fast. I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my in-progress novel, I think Saturday around 5 p.m. I think that's the tentative schedule. But if you go to freethoughtblogs.com and click on the fundraiser, actually Carnival of Curiosity logo, that'll give you the complete schedule.
Very nice.
Yes.
If people have questions about the blog or about you, how can they reach you?
I can be reached at bolingbrookbabbler@gmail.com.
Very good. Well, William, thank you so much for taking some time out of your evening to come talk to us about your conversion/deconversion story.
Yes, and next year the novel will be out. It's called The Rift, a Bolingbroke Babbler Story.
Very good. Thank you again, William.
Sure. Thank you.
Do you mind spending 30 seconds on dark matter just for the heck of it? So when we observe galaxies, we find that they're spinning around at such a rate that stars on the edge should be flung outwards, sort of like water droplets on a bicycle wheel that's spinning fast, the water gets flung out. Yeah. But the stars aren't getting flung out. Something must be holding them in. We don't see anything that can do that, but we know gravity has the power to hold things together. So we imagine that maybe there's some matter out there that we don't see, dark matter. That's why we don't see it. It doesn't give off light. And that matter is exerting a gravitational pull, holding those stars together in these spinning galaxies. And when we make that hypothesis, it explains observation so spectacularly well that we begin to gain confidence that maybe the stuff that we haven't yet seen and we haven't yet touched or smelled yet, maybe it's real. So we build big detectors and we try to capture one of these dark matter particles. We haven't succeeded yet, but I think that we will. So this is a beautiful example of how observations drive rational thinking to explain the facts and ultimately verify it through observation and experiment that can be replicated. That is what science is.
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
I'm so delighted that you're still here. And of course, we've got a minute or two here to wrap up the show. One thing I forgot to cover earlier on was about this idea of the cushion. And I've gotten a few emails where I'm guessing I have not been clear enough. So I will take the blame on this. As an example, if you're retiring and you have $1 million portfolio, and let's say you want to take out $40,000 or about 4%. If you have $400,000 in bonds, you could take out $40,000 in bonds every year and do that for 10 years. I often describe the cushion in the terms of years, how many years it would last. That example I just gave you is not how you do it. So I want to be clear. So if you have $1 million, $400,000 is in bonds, $600,000 is in stocks. The first thing you have to look at is how much are you going to make in dividends? To make this math really simple for me, let's assume all the bonds pay 2% and all the stocks pay 2%. A total of 2% for the entire $1 million portfolio, or $20,000. So you take out that $20,000 to start with. And then you take out, at least the first year, another $20,000 to get the $40,000 that you need. So if you have a $400,000 position in bonds, it won't last just 10 years, because you're not taking $40,000 out of the bonds. You're taking all the dividends from the stocks and all the dividends from the bonds first. And then if the stock market is down a lot, you sell some bonds, but you only sell to get up to the level that you need, in this case, $40,000. Of course, if you are in a situation where you could turn down your spending for a year, and it's hard to do if 100% of your money comes from your portfolio, but if you have Social Security income, if your spouse has Social Security income, if one or the other of you has a pension from an employer, all those things might still come in. So if you cut your dividend or the amount that you're taking out of your portfolio by half, it might only reduce your budget by 5 or 10%. Just something to think about. So you could think then, okay, Phil, well, if I'm getting $20,000 in dividends and I need $20,000 in bonds, now I only need $200,000 in bonds to last 10 years. No, that won't work either. It is more complicated, and you can create your own spreadsheet, and I have one that I use for clients, because if you have $200,000 in bonds, and again, we're assuming everything is 2%, so you made the $20,000 in dividends, and then you say, okay, I just sell $20,000 more in bonds, and you sell those bonds. Well, now next year, you don't have as much bonds paying dividends, so you're going to get slightly less dividends. But that also means you might have to sell slightly more bonds. So it's not quite as simple. But if you look at just pulling the entire amount out of the bonds, your cushion won't look big enough, at least in the way I describe it. So just keep that in mind, that you do need to count the dividends from the bonds and the dividends from the stocks before you start selling the bonds. So just something to think about. That's the kind of the way it goes. And again, if you have the flexibility where you can cut your spending, as an example, when my dad passed away at the age of 81, he was 90% in the stock market. That is probably not the right percentage for you. Again, none of this is specific investment advice for your situation. Please check with your own certified professional investment professional. I can't even do English now. But it's just to give you a point of reference. You're not only selling bonds, you have dividends. And those things change over time, because back in the 70s, as an example, the stock market, the S&P 500, had dividends close to 5%. So it's not 2%. Very different. You have to adjust your calculations. 10 years ago, you could easily have a bond portfolio of all kinds of different types of bonds and make 5, maybe even 6% on your bond portfolio. That is not the case today. That is not the case today at all. Any kind of bond fund that's paying you over 5% dividends, maybe even over 4.5% dividends, you better make sure you know what you got. Because somehow they have to take some kind of risk, or you have to take some kind of risk for them to be paying that much interest. Because if they could borrow money at 2, why are they borrowing it at 5? Because they couldn't get it at 2. They couldn't get it at 3. They couldn't get money at 4. They had to pay 5%. So what does everyone else know that they require 5% yield from this bond? Again, just basic stuff we've talked about many times. But I wanted to go over that with the idea of the cushion. Again, reminder, secularstudents.org/Phil. Go there and give a monthly contribution. Sign up for a monthly contribution. If you can only swing $1, fine. Contribute $1. I know I have a lot of listeners that don't have a lot of money. A lot of people in general don't have a lot of money. That's fine. Give what you can. I also know I have listeners that have a lot of money. And you don't have to give a ton, but if you can swing it, $5, $20, $50, $100 a month. And again, this is not going to fill. Matter of fact, you're going to cause me a little bit of pain. Not so bad. If it gets up to $10,000 contributed by the end of the calendar year 2020, up to $10,000, I will match that dollar for dollar. I think that wraps up the show. And I'm pretty sure, even though I've been teasing it for weeks, I'm pretty sure the next show will be the annuity show. Although I often, and now is not that much different, I often have several calls out to people to possibly do an interview. And sometimes 3 or 4 people respond in a week. And sometimes I go 3 or 4 weeks without responding. If I get somebody that I really want to interview and have on, particularly if it's somebody that's relevant before the election, the annuity thing might get bumped again, so keep that in mind. Then the last thing I wanted to follow up with was a little bit about the 2 stories that you heard. And I don't know if you noticed, I think I noticed that both stories, both people were tricked, were lied to, were told things, half-truths, exaggerations, falsehoods, however you want to say it, to get tricked into Christianity. And to me, that shows a sign, a big sign of weakness for the religion. The other story I wanted to add, and I don't know if I've covered this on the show, and if I have, I think it's been years. I had a friend of mine who made the same mistake that the parents of my 2 guests made, my 2 interviewees. And often I hear this from secular parents still today, where the secular parents, if it's one of them or both of them, say, you know what? I'm not going to teach my kids about any religion, and they'll be fine, and they'll just learn about it as they go along. Well, that doesn't work so well, in my opinion. A lot of people, it works just fine. But a lot of people, it doesn't work just fine, because you didn't make the effort to expose them to religions and what other people think and what other groups think when they finally are out of the house. And high school, they're out of the house a lot. College, they're out of the house maybe all the time. And they get introduced to other people. And then those people get to sell their religions with lies and deceits and falsehoods. And the young adult or old teenager doesn't know that that's a lie, because you never explained to them how the world works. You never exposed them to other religions, at least in sample amounts, just like a vaccination. What did they call that? I guess a vaccination. So they don't get inoculation. That's the word. They don't get indoctrinated because you inoculated them. So if they know the pros and cons and the positions that Catholics are taking or Protestants are taking or whatever religions that are in your area, when they go off to college and they hear it, they go, yeah, I know that's your marketing pitch, but I know that's not how it really works on the inside. And so they're much more easily able to fend off the lies that they're being told to. As an example, a friend of mine whose spouse was very religious, and it just happens to be that my friend was male and the spouse is female, and their kids were going to Sunday school and church all the time. And Dad said, hey, you know what? I don't want to get in the way. I don't want to confuse the kids. I don't want to cause any problems. I'll wait till they get older and then really explain to them my point of view. When the kids were, I think it was like 15 and 16, at some point he decided it was now time to tell the kids what he thought so that they could hear kind of, the 2 stories from the 2 parents. And he sat them down and was maybe a minute into his conversation, his minute to his explaining to them what they thought. And his daughter said, we were warned that this moment would come and that you would try to steer us away from God, and we know to not listen to you. And both of the kids got up and walked out on their dad. And he called me in tears. And he's choked up. He's in tears. And he thought he was doing the right thing, the nice thing by waiting. And when he finally wanted to actually talk to his kids, they informed him that they're not interested in it. And he said to me, I just lost my kids. And unfortunately, I had to break it to him that, no, indeed, you did not just lose your kids. You lost them many years ago. You just got notified. You just got informed. You just got educated that they were already lost to you. And of course, his question, and what another listener might ask, is, what do you do? The only advice I could give him at that time was to be a good dad. They know you have a different opinion. If they've already built up a defense mechanism that anytime you talk about religion or lack of religion, that it's going to become a battle, you're probably kind of stuck. So don't make that the battle. Maybe teach them about magic, teach them about skepticism, teach them about anything other than religion, because they've been trained to have the walls go up when you get anywhere near that part of the brain, that part of what they know to be quote unquote true. So it's been a hard road for him, and the kids are still religious a couple years later, and maybe they will be the rest of their lives. Maybe they won't. Maybe they will be like my interviewees from today that eventually kind of figured their way out. So I guess my as a parent, don't over dumb shit for your kids. They're smarter than you think. It's we were just visiting a relative, and a 2-year-old child was told to do something, and he completely ignored it. And you think, oh, well, he didn't hear. And then the parent said, if you don't do this, this is going to happen. And the child ignored the parent again, and then the parent picked them up and put them in, let's say, timeout. And, the child knew what the fuck was going on then. Screaming, crying, kicking, but then got put in timeout. And so children know probably far sooner than you think how things work and what's going on. So it's my request to you, if you are a non-religious parent, if you are a non-religious couple, please take the time, make the effort to make sure the kids understand your positions. You don't have to be an asshole about it. You don't have to mock your friends or family or relatives. Just bring up religions, talk about what these people believe, talk about what you believe, talk about why you believe what you believe, and maybe an educated guess at what they believe, or read some articles from a Christian website or an Islamic website, and then read stuff from an atheist perspective or a secular perspective or a scientific perspective. It doesn't have to be one view versus the other. Make sure they know they have a whole world of choices, and that they can critically analyze those choices, teach them those critical thinking skills. Anyway, way far more than I expected to do for my closing comments today. I do hope you enjoy the show. Thank you for listening. If you like the show, patreon.com/Phil. I almost forgot. Really, literally, I'm at the end here. I almost forgot. You may have noticed there's no more ads in the show. So the way it works is I use Spreaker, and they put in whatever ads they want, and they give me whatever money they think they want to give me. And so I'm kind of annoyed not only with the stupidity of some of the ads that get added in, but I don't know that I'm getting a fair cut. So I don't know that I can negotiate, because Spreaker's way bigger than me. So I just decided, fuck it, for now, no ads. If you appreciate the fact that there's no ads, the way to say a small thank you to Phil is to go to patreon.com/Phil and contribute at least $1 per episode. And again, sometimes I skip a week, like this has almost been 2 weeks. You're not paying every week. You only pay when I get my shit together and get a show out. So $1 per show. You can, of course, contribute $3, $5, and the top tier is $6.66. If you just think that's too funny and sweet to pass up, of course, your contributions are greatly appreciated. And if I get a whole bunch of money there, I will not really be tempted to put ads back in the show. But for now, I'm losing that revenue. It's not huge. Don't worry. I'll be okay. It's not huge, but I just didn't feel like I was getting my fair shake, so I turned it off. We're going to do an experiment. You can do that. Of course, all of my shows are on YouTube, and that popped into my mind because I'm looking at my email here, and I just got more notifications of comments. And boy, a lot of comments that come on stuff on YouTube are just cray-cray. I don't know. Everything from tinfoil hats to the religious extremists, just a world of nuttiness over there. Anyway, wrapping up the show. Thank you for listening. Patreon.com/Phil, or you can go give a 5-star review on Stitcher or Apple Podcast. Thank you for listening. I greatly appreciate it. Until next time, ciao.